She laughed when she said it, joked about trading me in like a used car. The room went silent when I said his name. Finn Walsh. That's when everything shattered. 2 sons, 1 affair, 15 years of lies, and a paternity test that would change everything I thought I knew about family. My name is Dale Pritchard. I'm 44 years old, and I work as a technical writer for a mid-sized software company in Portland, Oregon. I've spent the last 16 years married to a woman named Daphne, and we have 2 sons. James is 15, and William just turned 8. On paper, we look like the American dream. In reality, I was living in a house built on lies. It all fell apart on a Saturday night in early September. My buddy Greg Stillman was throwing his annual end-of-summer cookout. His backyard was strung with those cheap LED lights from the hardware store, and the fire pit was going strong. I had a beer in my hand, barely cold anymore, and I was halfway through telling a story about the first motorcycle I ever rode when Daphne cut me off. You know, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. She had that tone she used when she wanted attention, like she was performing for an audience. If I ever decided to upgrade, I'd probably go for someone who makes more than 45 an hour writing instruction manuals. She laughed. Nobody else did. The group went silent. Greg stared at the fire. His wife Linda bit her lip and looked away. Even their teenage daughter, who'd been on her phone the whole time, glanced up with wide eyes. I set my beer down slowly. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out steady. Upgrade, huh? I said, looking straight at Daphne. That's funny, considering you've been test driving Finn Walsh for the past 2 years. Her face went pale. For just a second, I saw panic flash in her eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold smile she always used when she wanted to win an argument. You're embarrassing yourself, Dale, she said, like she was talking to a child. Tell them, I said quietly. Go ahead. Tell everyone about Finn. About the hotel in Seattle last month. About the weekend you said you were visiting your sister in Tacoma. Daphne stood up, brushing imaginary dust off her jeans. You're being paranoid again, she said, but her voice wavered just a little. Greg cleared his throat. Linda looked like she wanted to disappear. The fire popped and hissed, louder than anyone's breathing. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I saw the messages, Daphne. All of them. She turned her back on me and walked toward the cooler like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just torn open the lie we'd been living. That's when I knew for certain. This wasn't guilt. This wasn't shame. This was just who she'd become. I didn't drive home with her that night. I spent that night at a roadside motel off Highway 26. The kind of place with flickering neon signs and a clerk who didn't ask questions. The room smelled like stale cigarettes and bleach, and the air conditioner rattled every few minutes like it was threatening to die. I didn't care. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone, watching it light up with messages I refused to read. Sleep didn't come. My mind kept replaying the scene at Greg's house. Daphne's face when I said Finn's name. The way she recovered so fast, like she'd rehearsed what to do if I ever found out. That wasn't surprise I saw in her eyes. It was calculation. By 6 in the morning, I was sitting in my truck outside our house in Beaverton. The lights were off. The curtains were drawn. Everything looked normal from the outside, like nothing had changed. But I knew better now. I waited until 7:30, then let myself in through the front door. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked through the living room, past William's toys scattered on the floor, past James's basketball shoes by the stairs. Everything was exactly where it should be, except nothing felt right anymore. Daphne was in the bedroom, still wearing the same clothes from the night before. She was lying on top of the covers, her phone glowing beside her on the nightstand. When she heard me come in, she opened her eyes, but didn't move. You're back, she said flatly. Not a question, not an apology, just a statement. I didn't answer. I walked to her side of the bed and picked up her phone. No password. She hadn't even bothered to lock it. What are you doing? Daphne asked, sitting up now. But she didn't try to stop me. I opened her messages. There it was. Finn Walsh. The name I've been dreading to see confirmed in black and white. I scrolled up. Dozens of texts. Photos. Voice messages. 2 days ago. Can't wait to see you Thursday. The usual place? Her reply. Counting down the hours. I dropped the phone on the bed. Not threw it. Just let it fall from my hand like it had suddenly become too heavy to hold. Daphne stood up, running her fingers through her hair. So what now? She asked. Her voice was sharp, defensive. You're gonna make a scene? Tell everyone. ruin everything we built. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I didn't recognize the woman standing in front of me. You already did that, I said quietly. Last night, at Greg's, in front of everyone. That was your fault, Daphne shot back. You brought him up. You embarrassed me. I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. I embarrassed you? She crossed her arms. You know what I mean. No, I said, shaking my head. I really don't. I turned and walked out of the room. She called after me, but I didn't stop. I grabbed my keys from the counter and left. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay there. I disappeared for 3 days. No calls. No texts. I turned my phone off and drove north until I hit the coast. Found a state park near Cannon Beach with trails that went on for miles. I slept in my truck the first night, parked at a trailhead with nothing but the sound of wind through the trees and waves hitting the shore in the distance. The silence was exactly what I needed. No Daphne. No accusations. No lies dressed up as excuses. Just me and my thoughts, sorting through 15 years of marriage and trying to figure out when it all went wrong. I kept replaying moments in my head. Last Christmas, when Daphne said she had to work late on a Friday and came home at midnight smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. The weekend she told me she was going to a marketing conference in Seattle, but when I mentioned it to her boss at a company picnic, he looked confused and said there was no conference. The way she started going to the gym 5 times a week, but never seemed to lose any weight or gain any muscle. I made excuses for all of it. Told myself I was being paranoid. That good husbands trusted their wives. That she deserved her privacy. What a fool I'd been. On the second day, I called my brother Scott. He lived in Eugene, about 2 hours south. I hadn't talked to him in months. Dale. Scott answered on the third ring. Everything okay? I told him everything. The barbecue. The texts. Finn Walsh. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end. I never liked her, Scott finally said. She always looked at you like you were a stepping stone, not a partner. That hit harder than I expected. Why didn't you say something? I asked. Would you have listened? Scott replied. You were in love, man. People in love don't want to hear the truth. He was right. I wouldn't have listened. But I was listening now. Scott told me to come stay with him when I was ready. Said I could crash on his couch as long as I needed. I thanked him and hung up. On the third day, I drove back to Portland. Not to the house in Beaverton. To my buddy Jamie's place in Hillsborough. Jamie had been my friend since college. If anyone would understand, it was him. I knocked on his door around noon. When he opened it and saw my face, he didn't ask questions. Just pulled me into a hug and said, Come on in, brother. His wife Rachel made coffee. We sat at their kitchen table, and I told them everything. When I mentioned Finn Walsh, Jamie's expression changed. Wait, Jamie said, leaning forward. Finn Walsh. Tall guy. Works in commercial real estate. Yeah, I said. What? Jamie exchanged a look with Rachel. Dale, he said slowly. Finn used to work with Daphne. Like 3 years ago. At that marketing firm downtown. My stomach dropped. What? Rachel nodded. I remember Daphne mentioning him at your 4th of July party a few years back. Said he was persistent and that she had to shut him down. So this wasn't new. This wasn't some recent mistake or moment of weakness. This had been going on for years. Daphne had looked me in the eye, told me Finn was just a co-worker who wouldn't take no for an answer, and I believed her. I felt sick. I'm sorry, man, Jamie said quietly. I nodded. I couldn't speak, because now I understood. This wasn't about me not being enough. This was about Daphne being exactly who she'd always been, and I'd just been too blind to see it. I didn't go back to the house for 4 more days. I stayed with Jamie and Rachel, sleeping on their couch and trying to piece together what came next. My mind was clear now. The anger had burned itself out, replaced by something colder, something more focused. I needed proof, not just for me, for the divorce, for custody of William, because I knew Daphne. She'd twist this whole thing around, make herself the victim, claim I was unstable or controlling or whatever story suited her best. I wasn't going to let that happen. I started with the phone records. Our plan was under my name, so I had access to the account. I logged in and downloaded every text and call log from the past 2 years. There it was. Hundreds of calls to the same number. Finn's number. Late nights. Early mornings. Times when she told me she was at yoga or grocery shopping or visiting her sister. Next, I pulled our credit card statements. Hotel charges in Seattle. Restaurants I'd never been to. A jewelry purchase from 3 months ago that I never saw her wear. She'd been using our money to fund her affair. I made copies of everything, printed it out, organized it by date. I built it like a case file because that's exactly what it was. On Saturday morning, I drove back to the house. Daphne's car was in the driveway. I took a deep breath, grabbed the folder from the passenger seat, and walked inside. She was in the kitchen, pouring coffee into a mug I'd bought her years ago. It had "World's Best Mom" printed on the side. The irony wasn't lost on me. When she saw me, she didn't look surprised, just tired. "You're back," Daphne said, setting the coffee pot down. "The boys have been asking about you." "Where are they?" I asked. "James is at a friend's house. William's upstairs playing video games," she replied. Then she crossed her arms. "So what now? Are we going to talk about this like adults, or are you going to keep running away?" I set the folder on the kitchen counter. It landed with a flat thump. Daphne glanced at it. "What's that?" "Everything," I said calmly. "Every lie you've told for the past 3 years. Every phone call. Every hotel. Every dollar you spent on him." She didn't open the folder. Instead, she laughed. Actually laughed. "God, Dale, you're so dramatic. What are you going to do? Take this to a lawyer? Try to ruin me?" "I already have a lawyer," I said. "I met with him yesterday. Filed for divorce this morning." That wiped the smile off her face. "You what?" Daphne's voice went sharp. "You heard me," I replied. "I'm done. We're done. I'm taking William, and you can have whatever's left of this house and this joke of a marriage." She grabbed the folder and threw it across the counter. Papers scattered across the floor. "You don't get to just decide that," she shouted. "We have 2 kids. We have a life here." I corrected her. "We had a life. You destroyed it the minute you started sleeping with Finn Walsh." Daphne's face went red. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? You think you're the hero here." "No," I said quietly, "but I'm not the liar." She opened her mouth to respond, but I was already turning toward the stairs. "Where are you going?" she demanded. "To pack," I said. "Then I'm leaving, and I'm taking William with me." I moved into Scott's place in Eugene the following week. It was a 2-bedroom house with a workshop out back and a yard that needed mowing. Scott worked long shifts at the plant, so most days I had the place to myself. That gave me too much time to think. William came to stay with me on the weekends. Daphne fought at first, but my lawyer got a temporary custody arrangement in place. Every Friday after school, I'd drive up to Portland to pick him up. He'd run to the truck with his backpack, excited to see me, and for those 2 days, I could pretend everything was normal. James never came. He always had an excuse. Baseball practice, friend's birthday party, homework, but I knew the real reason. Daphne got him first. One Saturday afternoon in late September, William and I were at a park near Scott's house. He was on the swings, pumping his legs and laughing as he went higher. I was sitting on a bench, watching him, when my phone rang. It was Jamie. "Dale," Jamie said when I answered. His voice was tight. "You need to know something." "What's going on?" I asked. "It's about James," Jamie replied. "Rachel ran into Daphne's sister at the grocery store yesterday. They got to talking, and Lisa let something slip." My stomach tightened. "What did she say?" Jamie was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "James isn't yours, Dale. Biologically, I mean. Lisa said Daphne told her years ago. The timing never worked out. She got pregnant right around when you 2 were separated for those few weeks back in '09. The world tilted. I gripped the phone harder. "What?" "I'm sorry, man," Jamie said. "I thought you should know." I hung up. My hands were shaking. I looked at William on the swings, his blonde hair catching the sunlight, his laugh carrying across the playground. Then I thought about James. Dark hair, dark eyes, nothing like me. I'd raised that boy for 15 years. Changed his diapers. Taught him to ride a bike. Sat through every baseball game, every parent-teacher conference, every birthday party. And he wasn't mine. That evening, after I dropped William back in Portland, I sat in my truck outside Daphne's house and called her. "What do you want?" She answered, her tone sharp. "Is James mine?" I asked. No preamble. No build-up. Silence. "Daphne," I said, my voice low. "Answer the question." "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice wavered. "Yes, you do," I replied. "Is James mine?" More silence. Then she sighed. "Does it matter?" she asked. "You raised him. You're his father in every way that counts." "That's not what I asked," I said. "No." Daphne finally admitted. He's not yours. Biologically. But you didn't need to know that. It would have just complicated things. I closed my eyes. My chest felt like it was being crushed. Who's his father? Does it matter? Daphne repeated. Who? I demanded. She didn't answer. Finn, I guessed. No, Daphne said quietly. Someone else. Someone from a long time ago. Before Finn. I laughed bitterly. How many have there been, Daphne? She hung up. I sat there in the dark, staring at the house where I used to live, and I felt something inside me break apart completely. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My mind kept circling back to one question. If James wasn't mine, was William? The thought made me sick. William was everything to me. His laugh, his curiosity, the way he looked at me like I hung the moon. The idea that he might not be my son was unbearable. But I had to know. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I told him what Daphne had admitted about James. He didn't sound surprised. We need to get a paternity test for William, he said. Just to be certain. It'll protect you in the custody battle. How long does it take? I asked. 2 weeks for results, he replied. I'll set up. Those 2 weeks were the worst of my life. Every time I looked at William, I saw uncertainty. Every time he called me Dad, I felt a stab of fear. What if he wasn't mine either? What if I'd spent 8 years loving a child who belonged to someone else? I tried to act normal. Took him to the movies. Made pancakes on Saturday mornings. Read him bedtime stories when he stayed over. But inside, I was falling apart. Scott noticed. One evening, after William had gone to bed, he found me sitting on the back porch with a beer in my hand, staring into the darkness. You okay? Scott asked, sitting down beside me. No, I said honestly. The test, he guessed. I nodded. What if he's not mine, Scott? What if I lose him too? Scott was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You won't. Even if the test says something you don't want to hear, you're still his dad. You're the one who's been there. That counts for something. Does it? I asked. Because I was there for James too, and that didn't matter. James is 15, Scott said. He's old enough to make his own choices. But William's 8. He needs you. And he knows you're his dad, no matter what some test says. I want to believe him. But belief was hard to come by these days. The results came back on a Tuesday afternoon. My lawyer called me at work. Dale, he said, the test came back. William is yours. Biologically confirmed. I had to sit down. Relief flooded through me, so fast I felt lightheaded. You still there? My lawyer asked. Yeah, I managed. Yeah, I'm here. This is good news, he said. It strengthens your case for primary custody. We can move forward. I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat at my desk and cried. Not from sadness. From relief. William was mine. I hadn't lost everything. The relief of knowing William was mine lasted about a week. Then reality set in. I had one son who was biologically mine and one who wasn't. One who wanted to see me and one who refused my calls. The weight of it all started crushing me from the inside out. I tried to keep it together. Went to work. Picked up William on weekends. Smiled when I was supposed to. But at night, alone in Scott's spare bedroom, I started drinking. Just a beer or two at first. Then 3. Then 4. Then I stopped counting. Scott found me one Thursday night, passed out on the couch with an empty bottle of whiskey on the floor beside me. He didn't yell, didn't lecture, just helped me to bed and left a glass of water on the nightstand. The next morning, I woke up with a splitting headache and Scott sitting at the kitchen table, waiting for me. We need to talk, Scott said as I stumbled in. I poured myself coffee and sat down across from him. I'm fine, I muttered. No, you're not, Scott replied. You're drinking yourself stupid every night. You smell like a bar. And yesterday, William called me asking if you were okay because you didn't show up to pick him up. My stomach dropped. What? You were supposed to get him at 3, Scott said. It's now 7:30 in the morning. You missed it, Dale. You were too drunk to remember. I put my head in my hands. Oh God. Yeah, Scott said. Oh God is right. You think Daphne's not going to use this against you? You think the court's going to give you custody when you can't even show up sober? He was right. I knew he was right. But I didn't know how to stop the pain. How to turn off the voice in my head that kept replaying every lie, every betrayal, every moment I'd been too blind to see the truth. I don't know what to do. I admitted, my voice breaking. Scott reached across the table and grabbed my shoulder. You get help, he said firmly. You talk to someone. You stop drowning yourself in a bottle. Because William needs you. And right now, you're failing him. That hit me like a punch to the gut. Because it was true. I was so consumed by my own pain that I was forgetting about the one person who mattered most. My son, the boy who still believed I was his hero. I called William that morning and apologized. He was quiet on the other end of the line. "It's okay, Dad," William finally said. His voice was small. "Mom said you were busy with work. Daphne had covered for me." I didn't know if that made it better or worse. "I'm sorry, buddy," I said again. "It won't happen again. I promise." "Okay," William said. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too," I replied, and I meant it more than I'd ever meant anything in my life. After I hung up, Scott handed me a business card. "Friend of mine," he said. "Therapist. She's good. Call her." I looked at the card. Dr. Angela Barnes. I'd never been to therapy before. Never thought I needed it. But I needed something. Because I couldn't keep doing this. Not to William. Not to myself. I made the appointment that afternoon. Therapy helped. Not immediately. Not like flipping a switch. But slowly, over the course of a few weeks, I started to feel like I could breathe again. Dr. Barnes didn't judge me. Didn't tell me I was weak or pathetic. She just listened. And sometimes that was enough. I stopped drinking. Went to a few AA meetings just to hear other people's stories. Realized I wasn't alone in feeling like my life had fallen apart. Other men had been through worse and survived. If they could do it, so could I. William started staying with me more often. The court agreed to extend my weekends to include Wednesdays and Thursdays. It wasn't full custody yet, but it was progress. And every moment I spent with him reminded me why I was fighting. James, though. James was still a ghost. He wouldn't return my calls. Wouldn't answer my texts. Daphne said he didn't want to see me, and there was nothing I could do to force it. Then, in mid-November, something changed. I was at Scott's house, fixing dinner for William, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello," I said. "Dad." It was James. His voice sounded older. Tired. "James," I said, gripping the phone tighter. "Hey, buddy. I'm glad you called." There was a long pause. Then James said, "Can we meet? Just you and me." "Of course," I said immediately. "When? Where?" "Tomorrow," James replied. "There's a coffee shop on Burnside. Can you be there at 2? "I'll be there," I promised. The next day, I drove to Portland an hour early. Sat in my truck outside the coffee shop, watching people come and go. At exactly 2 o'clock, I walked inside. James was already there, sitting in a corner booth with a cup of coffee in front of him. He looked up when I approached, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't expected. Uncertainty. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Hey," James replied. He didn't smile. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then James said, "Mom told me. About the test. About you not being my biological father." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I found out a few weeks ago. She also told me it's been going on for years." James continued. His voice was flat. The lying, the cheating, all of it. I didn't know what to say to that. James looked down at his coffee. "I've been angry at you," he admitted. "For leaving. For breaking up our family. But then Mom started acting weird. She's been seeing Finn at the house. And she acts like it's no big deal. Like we should all just be okay with it. I'm sorry you're going through this," I said quietly. James looked up at me. "Are you?" he asked. "Because you left. You just walked out." "I left your mother," I said carefully. "Not you. Never you. But I'm not even yours," James said, his voice rising slightly. "So why would you care?" "Because I raised you," I said firmly. "Because I was there when you were born. Because I taught you how to throw a baseball and helped you with your homework and cheered for you at every game. DNA doesn't change that, James. You're my son. Maybe not biologically, but in every other way that matters." James's eyes filled with tears. He looked away quickly, wiping at his face with his sleeve. "I don't know what to do," he said, his voice breaking. "Everything's messed up. Mom's mad all the time. Finn's always around. And William keeps asking when you're coming home." "I'm not coming home," I said gently. "Not to that house. But I'm not going anywhere, James. If you want me in your life, I'm here." James nodded slowly. Then he said, "Can I come stay with you? At Uncle Scott's? Just for a little while." I felt something loosen in my chest. "Of course you can," I said. "Anytime you want." For the first time in months, James smiled. It was small, hesitant, but it was real. The custody hearing was scheduled for early December. My lawyer said we had a strong case. Documented infidelity. Proof of lies spanning years. Character witnesses willing to testify that Daphne had been manipulative and unstable. But nothing was certain when it came to family court. James had been living with me at Scott's for 3 weeks by then. He slept on a cot in William's room, and the two of them had started acting like brothers again. Real brothers. Not the distant strangers they'd become over the past year. On the morning of the hearing, I put on my best suit and drove to the courthouse in Portland. Scott came with me for support. James wanted to come too, but I told him no. He didn't need to see this. Daphne was already there when we arrived, sitting with her lawyer in the hallway. She was wearing a conservative dress, hair pulled back, makeup subtle, playing the part of the concerned mother. When she saw me, her expression hardened. The hearing lasted 3 hours. My lawyer presented the evidence, the phone records, the bank statements, the messages between Daphne and Finn. He called Jamie to the stand, who testified about Daphne's history of lying. He called Scott, who testified about my commitment to William. Then Daphne's lawyer called her to the stand. She played it perfectly, tears at the right moments, voice breaking when she talked about how much she loved her children, how she'd made mistakes, yes, but she was working to be better, how I'd abandoned the family without giving her a chance to fix things. It was a performance, and for a moment, I worried the judge might buy it. But then my lawyer asked a question that changed everything. Mrs. Pritchard, my lawyer said, is it true that James is not biologically Dale Pritchard's son? Daphne's face went pale. I don't see how that's relevant, she said. Please answer the question, the judge said. Daphne hesitated. Then she said, no, he's not. And you never told Dale? My lawyer pressed. I didn't think it mattered. Daphne said defensively. You let him raise another man's child for 15 years, believing the boy was his own, and you didn't think it mattered? My lawyer repeated, his voice sharp. Daphne didn't answer. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Pritchard, I'm going to ask you directly. How long have you been having extramarital affairs? Daphne looked at her lawyer, who nodded reluctantly. Several years, she admitted quietly. The judge made a note. Then he looked at me. Mr. Pritchard, despite the fact that James is not your biological son, do you wish to maintain a relationship with him? Yes, Your Honor, I said immediately. He's my son in every way that matters. The judge nodded. Noted. Then he adjourned for a recess. When we returned, the judge delivered his ruling. Primary custody of William would go to me. Daphne would have supervised visitation every other weekend. As for James, since he was 15, the court would allow him to choose where he lived. And James had already made his choice clear. I walked out of that courthouse with my sons. Both of them. Not because of biology, but because of love. 8 months later, life looked different. Better. Not perfect, but better. I'd moved out of Scott's place and into a small 3-bedroom house in Eugene. Nothing fancy. Just a place with a yard where the boys could play and enough space for all of us to breathe. James had his own room. William had his. And I had mine. James finished his sophomore year at a new high school. He joined the baseball team, made new friends, started smiling again. He still talked to Daphne occasionally, but on his terms, not hers. William thrived. He was happier than I'd seen him in years. No more walking on eggshells. No more tension in the house. Just a kid being a kid. As for Daphne, I heard through Jamie that things hadn't gone well for her. Finn had left after the custody battle became public. Apparently, being exposed as the other man wasn't good for his real estate career. She tried to rebuild her life, but the lies had caught up with her. Friends stopped calling. Family became distant. She'd made her bed, and now she had a lie in it. I didn't feel sorry for her, but I didn't hate her anymore either. Hate required energy I didn't have. I was too busy building something new, something real. One Saturday afternoon in July, I was in the backyard grilling burgers when James came outside and sat on the porch steps. Hey, Dad, he said. I looked over at him. He'd started calling me Dad again about 2 months ago. The first time, I nearly cried. What's up, buddy? I asked. I was thinking, James said, about everything that happened. About Mom. About Finn. About finding out you weren't my biological father. I set down the spatula and walked over to him. Yeah. I just wanted to say thank you, James said, for not giving up on me, for fighting for me even when you didn't have to. I sat down beside him. James, you're my son. Biology doesn't change that. It never will. He nodded, looking down at his hands. I know, and I'm glad you're my dad, the real one. William burst through the back door at that moment, holding a soccer ball. Dad! James! Can we play before dinner? I stood up and ruffled William's hair. Sure thing, buddy. The three of us spent the next hour kicking the ball around the yard, laughing and arguing over imaginary fouls. It was simple, normal, everything I'd fought for. That night, after the boys went to bed, I sat on the porch with a beer and looked up at the stars. I thought about the man I'd been a year ago, the one who believed the lies, who'd stayed quiet when he should have spoken up, who'd almost lost himself in the wreckage of a broken marriage. That man was gone, and in his place was someone stronger, someone who knew his worth, someone who'd rebuilt his life from the ground up and come out better for it. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. I was free, and that was worth everything.